Hi, I'm John Faisandier. Yesterday you may have seen my post about Leo. He was right in a customer situation, completely right. The facts backed him up. But he still felt super stained all afternoon. And why? Here's what most people think. I just need thicker skin. I need to toughen up. I need more confidence. But that's like saying, I need to be taller. Confidence isn't something you get, it's something you build. And here's the kicker. You don't build it by being right more often. You build it through something completely different. Let me show you what I mean. When feedback lands on you like a stain that won't wash out, it's not really about the feedback. It's about your sense of self. Your sense of self is like your internal foundation. When it's strong, you can take knocks, even big ones, and bounce back. When it's shaky, even small criticism feels like proof that you're failing. Now, this isn't your fault. Your sense of self develops from early childhood. If you didn't get enough "you're okay as you are" kind of messages growing up, you learn to base your worth on performance, which means when performance wobbles, you wobble. Sanjay experienced this. He had never been marked down in his 10-year career in Australia, not once. Then his boss did it for the first time. Here's what Sanjay said. I felt like I was someone who could handle criticism pretty well, and I realised that night I wasn't handling it well. I was used to being an A player somewhere, and someone comes in and marks you down. I'm just working this week to recenter myself. Notice what happened. One piece of criticism didn't just sting, it shook his entire sense of who he was as a leader. And here's the really hard part. When you try to explain yourself or defend yourself, your boss sees it as being defensive. Sanjay said, anytime I'm saying or explaining something, my boss is looking at it as through a lens of me being defensive. I feel like I'm under scrutiny, I'm under threat, I'm under fire. So what do? Here's what doesn't work. Trying to be more confident. You can't force confidence. That's like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more elusive it gets. Instead, confidence grows as a side effect of something else. It grows from practice, from exposure, from self-compassion. Let me tell you about Leo again, but a different part of his story. When Leo started my program, he had very little confidence, his words. Here's what he does now, and this is brilliant. I used to prep for every hard conversation, he said. I had a lot of anxiety about any conversation, really. But after I started getting a bit of confidence, I deliberately stopped prepping for the smaller stuff. I just went with the flow. After a little while of doing the easier hard conversations without overthinking them, I gave myself more experience. So now when there's a much harder conversation, the way I respond is way different to what I used to be. I think it's because I keep exposing myself to those slightly awkward situations without overthinking them. Let me read that again. I keep exposing myself to those slightly awkward situations without overthinking them. Leo didn't just build confidence by getting better at the big conversations. He built by deliberately not over-preparing for smaller ones. He exposed himself to discomfort. He practiced. He learned his brain wouldn't explode if he didn't have the perfect script. And over time, his sense of self got stronger. Now listen to how he describes himself today. My confidence has grown a lot over the last year, he says, to the point where I barely recognize my own abilities. That's what happens when you stop trying to build confidence and start building a sense of self. So how do you actually do this? Well, there's three things. Number one, practice in real life and don't ruminate in your head. Now, you can't build confidence by thinking about confidence. You build new neural pathways in your brain by doing things differently in real situations. And you want to replay the successful conversations so that you strengthen the neural pathways. Ruminating usually refers to going over mistakes and reinforcing the bad feelings that you had from those failures. So you go in a downward spiral. You relive the bad rather than strengthening the good. Leo stopped over-prepping. He exposed himself to slightly awkward situations. He got instant feedback when things didn't go perfectly and could learn, especially when he shared those moments in the weekly CFL coaching. He was always able to appreciate what did go well and reinforce those behaviours. That's where real learning happens. Now, number 2, name the feelings, especially the shame. So when criticism stains you, there's often shame underneath. Shame is the feeling that says, I didn't just do something wrong, I am wrong. There's something defective about me. And here's the trap. Shame is so uncomfortable that you can't even name it. It's shameful to feel shame. But when you can say to yourself, this has knocked me a bit, I'm feeling shame, something changes. You're no longer drowning in it, you're observing it. There's a framework I teach, and I call it BATH. There's breathe, acknowledge the feeling, think about what's really happening to the other person, and hit the reset button. When Leo felt stained all afternoon, what he needed wasn't to be tougher. He needed to acknowledge, this has triggered shame in me. I can love myself even while feeling this. That's progress, and that is self-compassion. So build self-compassion, not a thicker skin. Fergie, another manager in the program, said it simply. Like all of these things, it's about practice. Practice builds confidence. But practice without self-compassion just builds anxiety. You have to practice and be kind to yourself when you stumble. I tell my clients, I believe in you, and I don't want to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. You need to believe in yourself at least as much as I believe in you, not because you're perfect, not because you never make mistakes, but because you're committed to learning. You believe that you can learn even when you make mistakes. Here's what I've seen happen over and over. When you stop trying to build confidence and start building your sense of self through practice and self-compassion, something shifts. The criticism still comes, the hard conversations still happen, but they don't stain you the same way. Sanjay's working on handling criticism better, not by defending himself more, but by recentering himself. Leo now barely recognises his own abilities in the best way. And Henry's learning that the team failing doesn't mean he's failing. And you know what the beautiful thing is? When you make this change, other people notice. They experience the difference, and then they start acting differently too. Confidence isn't about being right more often. It's about having a strong enough sense of self that you can be wrong, receive criticism, make mistakes, and still know that you're okay. That's what we build in the conflict-free leadership program. Not thicker skins, stronger foundations. In my next post, I'm going to share some specific examples of how managers applied this in their real situations. But for today, just notice, when was the last time that feedback stained you? What was the feeling underneath? What would it be like to acknowledge that feeling with compassion instead of pushing it down? That's where confidence actually starts. I'm Faisandier. I'll see you tomorrow.